This is the Digital Agency Insiders Podcast. Inside, you'll learn how to build, grow, and scale your digital marketing agency, all from the comfort of your favorite coffee shop. Let's get started with the show.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Digital Agency Insiders. I'm Tabitha Thomas, your host, and if this is your first time watching the podcast, it's a podcast that gives you a little bit of an inside look into how entrepreneurs have built and grew their digital agencies. So if this is your first time listening, I want to encourage you to go and subscribe to us if it's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever it is that you're listening to this podcast. Go hit that subscribe button and drop us a review while you are there, because I would love to hear what you think about the podcast. So on with our guest for today. Today I have with me Wendy Glavin. Wendy is the founder and CEO of Wendy Glavin Agency, which specializes in marketing, executive writing, PR, and social media advisory. Based in New York City, she is a 30-year veteran of corporate and agency marketing and consulting. She has worked across a wide variety of industries and with a strong focus on technology, fintech, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. She is a monthly contributor for equities.com and with a column called Glavin's Tech Talk. And Wendy is also a featured contributor of ComPro. Wendy, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you with us.
Thanks. I think you covered the whole thing. I think we're done. Thank you. Thank you for that nice introduction.
I absolutely love talking with entrepreneurs, but the one thing that I love probably more than anything is getting to tell female entrepreneur stories. So I absolutely love that you're on the podcast. And the first question that I always start with, because it's the one I love the most, is asking, what did the path of entrepreneurship look like for you? Did you wake up one day and be like, yep, I'm going to own my own business. This is what I'm going to do. Or was it a little bit of a bumpier path than that?
No, it's quite serendipitous. So my dreams, I had two dreams. One was to become an actress. One was to be a lawyer. So I majored in acting for 2 years. My professor said I was too dramatic. So I made this very basic, simplistic, thing at 18. And I was like, oh, well, I guess maybe they need dramatic people in communication. So I switched to that. I took the LSATs. My father was a prosecutor. I come from a family of lawyers. And he said, and I actually passed enough to get into kind of a crappy law school. So he said, you're never going to make a good lawyer because you can't see the other side. You're more of an advocate. And so he was right. I mean, my dad was my hero. He died at 68. He died young, but I've worked on trying to see the other side, but it's a really good point. If you want to win your case, you need to see the other side. So that's what led, and then I wasn't allowed to live at home. I got some of that tough love. So it's like, get a job and move out this summer after I graduated. So I got hired at GE working in-house. I was surrounded by engineers and developers, and, that was interesting. It was, corporate communications, giving presentations, training new employees. And then I wanted to be surrounded by my agency peers. So I joined a full service advertising and PR firm. And I didn't realize at the time, this is only now, I kept being given tech accounts. There, I got a division of DuPont, amongst other accounts, then got married, moved to New York, and I was hired by Burson Marsteller, now Burson Cohen Wolf, to manage a division of IBM. So still it doesn't hit me about the technology. Then I resigned from Burson. I raised 3 boys, and we had the incredible opportunity of living in the south of France for the month of July for 10 summers. So I identified an untapped niche, which was importing jewelry from France to the US. At the time, they call it jewelry fantasy. So see these bracelets, these aren't real, but that didn't exist in our country. This is a long time ago. So I purchased jewelry and went to Paris shows and that sort of thing and started my own business. It was a French name, but anyway, I sold jewelry to, employees at Vogue and Vanity Fair, to law firms, to, a Christmas party, a big, investment banking Christmas parties, that sort of thing. So that was my first business. that I started. And then we decided to get divorced. And so divorce is quite expensive here. So all my friends got together and said, let's help Wendy get divorced. And they threw these jewelry parties for me. And I raised $30,000 in cash to hire an attorney, and gave them, like in the conference room, $10, $20, $30, $40, because you have to put down $30,000 before they even get started. So then during that time, like I've had scrappy. So for example, I worked in retail. Then I worked for Channel 13. I worked on a show called Inside Trenton. Then I worked for a book publisher, promoting authors of new books with websites, and social media at that time was sort of just starting, and public relations. And then I became a full-time consultant. So working for agencies, nationally. I worked for an agency in Montreal, Canada. And what ended up happening is, it goes back to several years ago when I was working with the fintech CEO, and he said, creating his social media and creating content for him. So he said, Twitter really costs a lot per hour. I said, you think, I think I was charging maybe 50 an hour or 30 an hour. And I said, you think that's a lot? He goes, let's assume it was 50. He said, no, I'm being charged 150 an hour. So I had no idea. So he turned around and he fired the CEO of that agency. And the other two clients I had ended up, I guess, figuring out this too. So that agency dismantled, and the CEO of that fintech firm said, could I hire your agency? Which I didn't have an agency then, but that was actually the inspiration. I wanted to charge the value of the service, not double and triple bill people out. So that's sort of that doesn't bring me millions of dollars, but, I just believe in charging the value of the service. So, if it takes me a half hour to write a press release, I'm not going to charge $500 to write a press release. I'm just giving as an example.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. And you got to spend time in the south of France. Can I just say I'm unbelievably jealous?
No, I totally get it. No, I know. Those were like absolutely fantastic times, and just really opened my I would say that experience, in addition to having children, as you know, that changed me. Like it just gave me a different perspective on life, like living in a different country. It's a really great, we didn't have the opportunity to do that in college, but one of my sons, actually they've all done that. They've all been able to live abroad. So it's a great experience if a family can support that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you mentioned press releases, but tell me about the core services of your agency. What is it that you focus on right now?
So typically this is how it works. So I have a conversation with the prospect, and I would say first and foremost, and probably you'll agree because of what you do, and it's typically tech firms. So I don't want to say always, because I don't believe in like always and never, but often there's problems with websites, too technical, too jargony, too accolades, too, we're the best, we're the most revolutionary, we're the fastest, so I usually start with the website and talk about, how and why we need to change the content. And oftentimes they'll say, I want PR. And I say, okay, well, you're not getting PR. I mean, I'm very honest. I'm honest and direct. And, I think that people hire me, either like me for that and hire me or don't. But I'd like to tell people the real truth. I like Richard Edelman's quote, which is like, we need to be our client's conscience. So instead of taking money, I said to him in particular, I said, look, it's not going to get picked up, because that's where editors go. They go to your website, they go to LinkedIn. And so then he said to me, look, I don't need a writing lesson from you. I said, I'm not giving you a writing lesson. I'm telling you how you would be able to get PR. So then I said, what do you do? I said, no, that's not what I was doing. I was just trying to be helpful. So I said, what do you do? He goes, I work on Wall Street, which I was like, I figured that because my ex-husband he's been working on Wall Street for 32 years. We're actually friends. But I sent a proposal, and that would be the first time I never followed up, because I thought, you know what, if the conversation starts that way, that's just not going to be a good collaboration. So I would say that, so I have a different, it's not a pricing structure. It's kind of, it's dependent on each individual client, because each person has, their own needs. So for example, perhaps, a company let's say it's a blockchain startup, that they typically need, editing or writing help with pitch decks, with white papers, with, getting their websites ready, being trained on how to pitch. So I think it depends on the industry. It depends on where the company is, like what stage. So, I would say the core service that I offer, in addition to the ones that you mentioned, it's content marketing. So that's writing. So, I'm a published writer, I'm a writer. So writing is pretty much a lot of what I do, whether that's, writing an article, writing a press release, writing a pitch, or, as I said, white papers, decks, doing websites, that sort of thing. So I would say that's really the core thing. That's the core thread. And I'd say technology also is a thread, because looking back during these months when we're trying to, figure out how to, as they say, pivot, this isn't really pivoting, but I thought to myself, I've been in technology for 30 years. I've always worked in technology. So it's a matter of like owning it. So I did a webcast 2 weeks ago. I'm taking that tech talk that Equities was so generous to give me, Glavin's Tech Talk, and branding it a little bit, not officially, but I did Tech Talk, how to become more marketable. I created a new LinkedIn group, Tech Talk from Newbies to Savvy. And people always ask me, well, how did you learn about blockchain? How did you learn about like fintech? It's like, people just pick up a book and read, you know what I mean? It's like, just read, do research. I think it's easier to learn than at any time before, with all the tools that we have at our disposal.
That is so, so very true. So how do you, I know that technology is like the niche that you go into, and you kind of feel like you kind of stumbled into it a little bit. So why was everybody coming to you because of the technology type of things?
I think, and this isn't my quote, but this is, some people say this a lot. It's like, technology isn't sexy. So oftentimes people don't want to work in technology. So it's sort of like, people tend to think it's like, it's too complex, it's too hard to understand, it's too complicated. So I think that they shy away. And so since people know that I do that, they think, oh, if it's technology, just call Wendy. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it's come to be. And then I think, you must agree, like when you're surrounded by something all the time, you're then comfortable with that language. So I've been surrounded by technology language all my life. So it's sort of easier for me to decipher when I read something that's kind of complicated, I can kind of decipher it. So I think it's just based on, I believe it's like building on your skill set, not reinvention. I believe just build on your skill sets, and also acknowledge, like, you look back at throughout your career, your background, your experiences, your relationships, your, hobbies, your interests, you have no competition, right? Because everyone, if they bring their authentic self to the table, then people trust them. So I don't think that people hire me because of what I do. I think people hire me because of who I am, or don't hire me.
Yeah. I like it. So how are you finding these potential tech companies to get in front of? How are you finding your clients in the first place?
I would say it's fortunate. I'm very fortunate and lucky and grateful to have people recommend me. So I think that's first and foremost. I don't really feel that now's the time to be selling. First of all, I never sell or promote myself. Because that's, again, like my dad said, the thing is to advocate for other people. So in your article that you wrote, I believe it was today, a really great article, but you talked about doing things for free as an example. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to, but I do write for Equitys for free. Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot of time, and I feel like that's one of the things I'm proudest of. But that has given me some notoriety, by doing something for free. To your point, has that gotten me a client directly? No, but I have a pretty full body of writing, and then so people, that's how you can get. I'm not talking about known. I'm just saying that's how you get noticed. It's sort of what your article said, putting yourself out there in front of people. So, I'm always open to doing like podcast interviews. I'd say putting ourselves out there, but to be helpful, not now to be, selling or, trying to get people to, to pay for services. Mm-hmm. I just think it's just it's a time that we all need to be very sensitive. And I'm actually challenged by the article I have to write this month for Equitys, because I don't feel comfortable writing about like technology landscape right now, because, what everybody's thinking about and worried about, like we don't know when this is going to end. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a more challenging to create content. But what I'm doing is I think basically the title is something like, what have you learned from the pandemic? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things I think that positive that we can think about this. Like you and I spent time before this podcast talking about personal things. And I think that in the past, it was kind of business and personal were separate. And now I feel like every single time I have a call with a stranger, it's always like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Like, how are you managing? I think it's really important. And I hope that continues to stay after I guess, whatever, new norm, after the new normal, the next new normal.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. It's like everyone was so focused on the dollar and making money. And now we're more focused on everyone's well-being in general, whether that be business or personal, whatever it may be. Everyone's just, you're right. Their focus is kind of shifted. And actually I like it because I love getting to know new people and I love taking care of people. So that makes me unbelievably happy that our environment is just changing. I like that side of things, not necessarily the virus side of things, but I like, I like how people's personalities and the way they're communicating is changing. So
yeah, I think it is. And I hope that stays, which obviously it's going to stay because it's not going away anytime soon, but this is something that affects everyone globally. It's every single person is affected. There's a guy named Brian Schulman. He does a LinkedIn Live shout out Saturday, shout out Wednesday, and it's called #VoiceYourVibe. And anyone can go on there and you can go on the show, and it's all about, talking about the people that inspired us the last week. Like what is something positive that we can share? It's all about sharing like positivity. Mm-hmm. It's very uplifting. I was last Saturday, because I typically go on his show, and I was just like, oh, you know what? I'm just having a bad day. I'm not in the mood. I'm just, you know what I mean? And I put it on the background. He's so upbeat. He's such a big personality that I'm listening in the background. And then I hear him mention my name about this article I wrote about him. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I better get on. And also the publisher who published it. So I thought, I said, I need to get up and put makeup on and get on this show. And then I called her. She's like, I said, yes. She goes, I don't have any makeup on. I said, I don't care. You have to get on the show. We can't have him saying that he's grateful for what you and I did, and then we say nothing in return.
Yes.
And what was more interesting is that I started by saying, what I just told you, I really wasn't feeling very good on Saturday. I was feeling down. And do you know of anything that I've said that resonated with people? I didn't say it as a strategy, but people were like, that's so great, that's so great that you would still come on. I wasn't that down, but you know what I mean? It's like, And I've been reading articles and it says, if you're down or you're depressed or you're worried or you're stressed, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable now.
Well, and I think that's what's changing too, that I think is so great, because when you can connect with people who are being real, it just changes things. Even with writing our articles, like, don't try to be this puffed up, made up version of yourself. Just be who you are, and people will connect with that so much more than just the fake version you want everybody to think you are.
It's just hard for people.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's hard for people to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we can all take solace in the fact that like so many people are being vulnerable. I'm talking like top New York Times editors are writing about, how they've gone down a rabbit hole, or how they're, everybody talks about not getting their hair cut and, all those kinds of things. So, it's, or even like, Chris Cuomo, I mean, him talking from his, his home when he had COVID. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yes, let's kind of take off the cloaks and daggers and let's just be who we are. Like, in other words, merge our personal and professional selves.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not one thing. Like, people say to me, are you a PR person? It's like, no. Are you a marketing person? No. It's like, I'm a combination of a lot of different things.
Yeah. I love it.
We all are a combination of different things. And I think people look back, however far back is, if people look at their, what they've done, they'll be able to find, common patterns and transferable skills. Mm-hmm. So, I was able to not find, but, do writing. So that's like a separate skill set, but still builds on what I already had.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody wanted to get into the writing space, because like we said, COVID's kind of changed everything, and maybe somebody has lost a job because of everything that's going on, but they have a talent for writing, how would you suggest somebody to pick that up and add that to their agency, or start an agency that does writing or PR or any of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say, the most important thing is to, and I hate to use this word, but to know like exactly what's happening today. In other words, don't do research from like, December 2019. So sometimes when I do endless research. So if I'm trying to find something and I can't find it, meaning for this month, then I'll just keep changing what I search for. I keep changing until I get the answers I want. So I do a ton of reading, a ton of research, and then as they say, you should speak about what you know. You should write about what you know. So I think it's, people could start with, for example, a blog. Like, I usually write 2,500 like long form pieces, articles, but let's say like a blog that's 300 words. Mm-hmm. I also recommend to people, because what I've done is like follow the people that are ahead of us. And I don't mean better than us, but people who are already, writers, or people who are, PR professionals, or whatever it is that you're striving to do. So learn from people ahead of you. Another thing would be to hire a mentor, or, get a mentor, whether that could be like, if you're young, that could be like a coach or a professor, or, you can hire a business advisor. I would say I have a business advisor. She's been incredibly helpful. She actually said to me a couple of years ago, I'm going to mention her here too. Her name is Deidre Breckenridge, and people would be lucky if she would work with them. So I was in a taxi that crashed with a Mack truck in November 2016, and I founded my agency in August 2016. So I was bedridden. I had 2 knee replacements prior to that, and so then I had a MCL tear on my knee replacement, so I wore a full right leg brace. And I wrote to 4 people that I didn't know, Deidre being one of them, Neil Patel, Dory Clark, and somebody else, and said, can you please help? Like, I was in this accident, and how do I generate leads for my website? So in 2016, Deidre gave me homework. So like writing assignments, like you need to do this, you need to start a blog, you know what I mean? And so I would have like something like, instead of laying in bed feeling sorry for myself, I was accountable to somebody. So that was really good. And then as the years have gone by, she has said to me, why don't we get you, I wish I could tell you the name of the company, but I can't. But she says, look, it's time for you to be paid for your writing, like meaning paid for an article.
Yeah.
She says, I'm going to recommend you to, let's just assume it's like a huge company. Okay. Not assume, but no, it's a big, huge name. So when she told me that, I was like, what are you, crazy? Like, I'm not going to like to write for them. And it turns out I got hired, and actually the person I did ghostwriting for said, like, and is very well known, just said, what you're asking me, like, how did you get started writing? So I think there's some of us have like an imposter syndrome, you know, like, oh, well, like I can't do that. Like, I'm not really, you know, but it's like, just take the step. So as an entrepreneur, I'd say some of the biggest things are to be resilient and, you know, to learn from your mistakes, to take risks. And, you know, if you fail, you have to just, you know, keep coming back. Like, okay, this didn't work. How can I, you know, what can I learn from it? So I had a client, and I was so interested and excited about the work that we were doing. He was a blockchain startup, or not was, he's a blockchain startup. But I ended up realizing that I sometimes I don't count the hour. I'm not like into counting hours. I'd rather just come up with some retainer, and then I do what, you know, I accomplish what needs to get accomplished at whatever time or day I need to, whether that's 10 o'clock at night or on Saturday or whatever. But I realized that I was working 90 hours, which was translating into almost nothing. And so I'm being better about that. Like, I get really excited about work and, you know, doing stuff. But then, you know, in the end, I mean, we do need to be paid and to be certainly valued for what we do.
That is so true. And I love the fact that you say that it's okay to fail, because one of my quotes is fail and fail often, because anytime you fail at something, you learn from it and you alter what you do so that you never do that failure again. You may fail again, but you may not fail in that exact way again. And so you're growing and building off of that. So, and for me, adding on to what you just said is just like just do it. Just go write the first thing and then write the next thing. And it's like me with podcasting. I had never done a podcast before. I was terrified. Who am I to start a podcast, you know? But I did one and I didn't die. So then I did a second one and I still didn't die. I did the third one and just keep going.
Example. That's even, I mean, to be honest with you, that it's a challenge. Not doing a podcast because I'm talking to somebody, but, you know, I mentioned Brian Schulman, and he was like, you should create your own live video. I'm like, no, I can't. It's like working out of my bedroom. It's like my house is a frat house or whatever. And he goes, no, but people can relate to that. And he was right. I did do a live video. I like did it probably like 10 times and I kept deleting it. But no, you're right. You're very good at this.
Well, thank you. Well, that's my advice for anybody. Do it. And if it doesn't kill you, do it again.
Get a second pair of eyes. I mean, yes. I'm generous about like somebody sending me something, and I'm not going to spend, you know, days, but if somebody wants me to look at something, I can pretty much see right away what are some of the problems.
Well, and that took experience, years of doing it to be able to get to that point. So that's incredible. So what is the absolute favorite thing that you do with your agency right now?
I would say my favorite thing to do is this, you know, speaking to new people, sharing ideas, and, you know, trying to help people. I think that, you know, people really need help, need positivity, need compassion and sensitivity and all that kind of thing. So that's something that I really enjoy. And I'm in this, which anyone can sign up for. It's called Lunch Club AI. And I was invited. I don't know too much about it. I was invited there. And so what they do is they set up, you based on the profile that you write, they match you with somebody else, right? Their AI engine. Mm-hmm. So I've been having 2 meetings per week, 45 minutes each. It's free. And you just talk to people and you define your objectives. Like, do you want to brainstorm with peers? Do you want to discuss new projects? So that's a great, well, I know they raise, I guess they're a startup still, but it's called Lunch Club. So that's a great thing. Sometimes I'm talking to somebody younger and just offering mentoring help. So Lunch Club AI I'll send you an invite.
Okay.
Tabitha. You don't need to do anything. I'll just send you an invite.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. So I know there's lots of challenges right now, especially with, the COVID-19 crap that it is. And so what's the biggest challenge that you have going on right now besides working from home?
The working from home, other than the fact of what I told you with like a bunch of grown men not a bunch, but 2 boys in my other room, is, people being afraid to spend money, because we don't know what's going to happen. There's been so many layoffs and people furloughed. And so I think that it's a tough thing for companies and agencies right now, to be able to make money. I mean, I've heard this all the time. Do you agree? Have you heard that as well?
We've actually heard a lot more of people or agencies finding a lot more opportunities because businesses that were, especially in our area of the country, that weren't doing much online are now finding a definite need to do things online, where it wasn't a focus before, it is now. And now they're looking for people to actually help them with that side of things. So most of the people in our group, in our area, have found an increase because of those things.
Yeah, I think because I'm, involved with tech, so they are obviously
already there. Yeah.
Websites and their mobile apps and all that kind of stuff. So, I think it's probably what you said, based on like where you live. I'm in New York City. Mostly everybody I know is online, meaning has been online for a while.
Yeah.
So, I would say that I would say like a real honest challenge is that I don't like to sell myself. So, to go do like lead generate, I get all these sales calls about lead generation, and it's just, I like it to be more organic. Mm-hmm. So I don't use tools. I don't use like lead generation tools. I have Cision, which you probably have too, the database, PR database. Mm-hmm. So certain tools, but not lead generation tools, because I like it to be more organic. So I'd say the biggest challenge is the way that I would get clients is from going to events, participating in events, speaking in events, meeting people, all in-person kinds of things. So now all we can do is like replicate that by this. Like now we're in person, kind of.
And live videos.
About the live videos. I did one like 2 weeks ago. I can't do one once a year. You have to keep doing them.
A little bit. You didn't die. Do it again.
True.
So the last question that I have for you, what are you currently reading or listening to that is encouraging you or helping you grow as an entrepreneur?
Okay. So I always have some tech book by my side. So one book I'm reading is called Life After Google. And then and then I've got other tech books, but I'm also going to read, it was recommended to me, The Art and Science of Results by Joe Vitale. No one can see that. And then how about this one? This is somebody recommended this. I just ordered it. Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom.
Is that not appropriate right now?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect book. It's called How to Build Resilience and Overcome Anxiety. Stephanie D'Alfonso. I haven't started reading it yet, but I think that's a perfect title. I mean, you couldn't have better than that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Wendy, it's been a blast chatting with you and getting to know you. Thank you so much for letting us dig into your agency a little bit. And I wish you nothing but the best since all this crap has happened, and hopefully it will resolve soon.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It was really fun talking to you. I had a really great time, and enjoy your kids, and let's continue to stay in touch.
Yes, please. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Digital Agency Insiders Podcast. For more tutorials on growing your digital marketing agency, make sure to visit digitalagencyinsiders.com.